Question is, are you there on sufferance?
Essentially.
Um,
Or did you encounter that attitude from your colleagues?
you don't need to have somebody come up and say, "I know you're here just because you're black," but the innuendos, not amongst my department, but that you found, like in going to meetings of the academic senate, which is dominated by campus politicians, white. Um, it's something that's hard to quantify, but clearly the conventional wisdom was, well, we're going to put up with these guys because we have to. We're going to make as few of them as we can. That became clear. I saw that because they're not qualified. Um, but nobody, I'm laughing because of the experience, but nobody came and said, "Bragg, I know you're here because of affirmative action."
What was it?
And or to add to that, it's too bad you don't belong here. Nobody ever said anything like that. I don't think my professional competence ever was at issue. Simply because, now it might have been, but you see, I was doing things that nobody else there was doing. So they might have felt it wasn't all that important, but not that it was incompetent. And that's unfortunately characteristic of all intellectuals. Whatever you're doing is great, and what he's doing is okay, but it's not all that great. So that wouldn't have anything to do necessarily with ethnicity. It's just the way faculty people think that whatever they're doing that's it. You know, the world rises and falls on what he's doing, but he's doing that's okay. But you know.
Why did you laugh to yourself?
Well, the reason I laughed was Bill Jackson, who is now a chemistry professor at Davis, UC Davis, had been at Howard University for quite a long time, and a very good friend of Harry Morrison's, who they both attended the same graduate school at the Catholic U in Washington. Bill Jackson is a very bright guy, very ingenious, inventive guy, highly intuitive too, just a great physical intuition, and he has a tremendous respect for Harry Morrison, but Harry is a theoretician.
Physical intuition?
Physical intuition means that you can just look at a problem and without having to go through a lot of mathematics and so on, kind of see the way things will go. Some have it and some don't. Michelson was a good example of a guy with and there are lots of other examples. But anyway, one time he told me he came over to the campus to see a guy over in nuclear engineering who was doing some work in nuclear chemistry that Jackson was interested in for some reason. Well, there's different locations on the campus. But knowing Harry, he looks Harry up when he comes over from Davis. And he says, "Well, look, I'm going to go over here and see this guy in nuclear. Why don't you come and go along with me?" So Harry said, "Well, okay, I'll go. I've never been over there." So they go over to this guy's office for Bill Jackson to talk to this Berkeley faculty member who's white. And Harry just sits there. So they're talking, and ever so often Bill says the guy looks over at Harry. They'd been introduced already, but that was all. And he said, I know what was on his mind. He's wondering, what is he doing here? What is he doing? So the guy can't contain himself. He finally asked, "Well, what do you do over in physics?" And he said, Harry picks up a piece of chalk, goes over to the blackboard, proceeds to give about a half an hour lecture with lots and lots of equations. He puts it down and said, "That's what I do." God never should ask him. But the point was, this guy can't believe there's this black guy there, as educated as he was. I don't think he was a racist. It just is not something he's used to. Not having had any experience at all with Harry. He doesn't know who Harry is. He's just an ordinary. Harry never went out of his way to be all that, look professorial either. He looked like he was just kind of off there, you know.
What did he look like?
Well, you see a picture of mine on the back of that brochure that I gave you there. You'll see it looks pretty much the way Harry looked most of the time, except that he wouldn't have a coat and tie on. He would have he'd probably wear a coat, but with a velour sweater, you know, open neck sweater. You know, I never saw him without a book. Maybe some chalk dust on it, but he kind of looked like the absent-minded professor, but he didn't look like a Berkeley professor, because he was black. So, as I say, well, this guy, he just can't contain himself. And they asked Harry what he did. Rather than explain him, he just demonstrated what he did.
Yeah.
Started out with you know some basic ideas, and then gave him about a half an hour lecture, and put some chalk down. So that's what I did.